back to my channel. So today we are continuing on with this process of nesting. If you are new here, my name is Kelly and I like to share about secondhand shopping. I share about our life as a family living in a relatively small space. So today I'm going through and yes, I am taking down the Christmas cards in April. It felt like it was time. So every year I display these in some sort of way, and it was just time to take them down, as well as take out this greenery that has been in this basket on our door since, well, Christmas time. So I wanted to take those out and just replace them with something I already had so that I can just save a little bit and not have to spend too much on spring decor. So I just had these pink sprigs and I am just placing those kind of in a way that makes sense to me, trying to keep them balanced. And I have really enjoyed being greeted by these flowers whenever I come in the door. You can see behind me that over the couch we have a corner with a lot of things that need to be put away. These are baby shower items that we have been blessed with over the past few weeks. So one thing that I am doing this week is looking for a spot for all of those things to live. So you guys will be getting to see kind of our nursery tour. I'm excited to share that with you, but lots of nesting going on, lots of little projects, and just trying to bring light, beautiful spring touches to the home. So I mentioned baby showers. We had a baby shower this week and I was given some beautiful flowers to take home. So I am just transferring those over to a pitcher that I already had, and they have brought a lot of life into our kitchen this week. I also made 2 loaves of sourdough sandwich bread this week. So I am putting one of those loaves here just so we can enjoy it. And I find that if I present the food beautifully, people are more likely to reach for it. Today's video will largely be spent working on this area. This is a shelf behind the door in our bedroom, and it has just become cluttered. So I'm going to go through and just kind of take inventory of what is here. There are a lot of books. There are storage boxes with price tags still on them. There are really more storage boxes than I care for there to be here. And I know that some of these things are just here because of decision fatigue. I know that there are things here that I really want. And then I also know there are some things here that I really don't care about. Anytime that I am going through a space, I just went through my under the sink cabinets in the kitchen recently. And if you missed that video, I will link that one down below. But anytime I go through a space like this, the first thing that I need to do is inventory what we have. Often I will start with the path of least resistance. I will pick whatever part of the task feels easiest for me to start with, and then that will kind of get my momentum going. So for me, in this particular project, it was my fabric collection. So in the lower part of this cabinet, I have had stored fabric and my sewing machine. And this is a combination of a lot of things. It is random pieces of fabric, or like you saw that pillowcase. Whenever my daughter was little, I would regularly thrift fabric for her and make headbands and hair bows. And we're just not in that season now. And most of my sewing is just when I want to do an occasional project for me or when I am mending something for our family. For example, you can see here I had a dress shirt that was an extra, extra large, and it was a men's. It was something that I liked the color and the pattern, but I didn't have a use for it. So I went through and donated a lot of fabric, and that made me feel really good to get that out. And these are things that somebody else can use. I just kept the fabric that I loved most. So the next area that felt easiest for me just to kind of continue on was the sewing supplies. So everything that goes along with that, the thread, the needles, it's a lot. It feels like a lot. This feels excessive. So I'm starting by just going through and taking inventory. Of the boxes you see here, the wicker one in the middle is my favorite, both design-wise and sentimentality-wise. This was my grandmother's sewing kit, and she lived in this house. This was her home. And I had asked my sisters if they were okay if I kept the sewing kit, and they were perfectly fine with that. So I'm going through and I'm organizing, I'm throwing away lots of duplicates, random bits of thread, and then I'm doing much like I did under the sink, and I'm combining things. So I had some buttons, she had some buttons, and I'm going through and I'm condensing those into 2 containers where they were really in maybe 3 or 4. So little simplification projects like this can really help to decrease what you have, and then therefore, you see that box, I was able to eliminate that. So here's a glance at what we are working with now. You see the thread, and then in the lid of that box are all the extra things. We have also eliminated the need for this wooden box. Now, I may find another area of my home to use these in, but I don't need them here. So this is what the sewing basket looks like now. I have my manual for my sewing machine. I have all these little bits and bobs in this plastic container, and then all of my thread is below that. The buttons did not fit, but I'm actually going to stick those somewhere else. You'll see that in a little bit. So I didn't mind just having them in a separate jar. All right, so another area that really stresses me out in my house are little bowls and little containers that grab random things. Broken things that need to be sewn back together, missing pieces of childhood toys. Just, if you are like me, those things really stress you out. So they go into a basket to get corralled and dealt with at a later time, and then somehow that time never comes. So that was one thing I had to deal with, was going through all of those little bowls. The next thing that I'm doing is pulling out some books that I want to read over the next few months. And I am moving some of those books to my nightstand and kind of making a display with those to free up some space on the shelves. So I know a lot of these books are going to go back on here, but a few of them I am donating, and I am just taking this opportunity to really dust the shelves and get a nice clean slate as we start out. Once I get this space kind of cleared out and clean, then I can really start to rearrange. All right, the fan is going and we have company here. We're having a play date, so if you hear talking in the background, sorry. But as I go through and I style these shelves, I'm just going to use what I have. But I came across a post by Shelby Goodman on Instagram, and she said this combo always works for me as far as like styling shelving: original art, pottery, pattern, books, something living, and something unexpected. So I'll screenshot that and put it here. I think having that checklist is really helpful whenever you have things that you want to store, but also things you want to style, and you want to make it functional, but you want to make it pretty. So the printer's going to have to stay here, and my like teaching manuals are going to have to stay here. But as far as these upper 2 shelves, I'm going to try to follow that formula and see what happens. So I'm going in and starting with the elements to that formula that I know that I have. I know I won't be able to accomplish it perfectly. And in reality, this space needs to store a lot for us. There are still a lot of books that need to go back on here. So I'm playing around with a stack of books here, and I'm just realizing I'm going to need to put more in that space than that. So it's okay if you live in a small space like I do. It's okay to really need to use your spaces. I think sometimes I can look at a decorated space and think, do you actually functionally use any of that? And I can look at this shelf and attest that yes, those storage bins, the gingham ones, they have photos, they have other things that I will be accessing regularly. And then of course you see my wicker sewing basket there. And then of course the books. So there absolutely are things on the shelf that I will be reaching for. It is not just a collection of random trinkets that we look at, but they just collect dust. I certainly want it to be a balance of form and function. And I try to, as much as possible, do that throughout my entire house. So I'm adding this little picture up at the top. Pretty much everything you see here was either a yard sale find or a thrift find. My husband found me that little mini picture at our thrift store. The gingham boxes were found at a local antique store for a steal. The little small frame I found while I was thrifting, and the faux tulips were also a yard sale find. once everything is all put into place, it felt so good. This project took a long time. This took me most of the morning, but this is something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. And it feels so good to look at this corner and see things actually put somewhere with some intention. So as I look at the shelves, I can see those little bits of intention and styling where you have the pottery, you have the pattern, you have the texture, you have something, quote unquote living, but you also have the things that you need. I ended up putting the button jar here, and I like that it's pretty, but it also sort of reminds me what is part of the purpose of this piece of furniture. Whenever I clean out a space, I remind myself, what are the needs and how does the space need to serve me? And this space for us is a homeschool space. It is a reading space. It is also a space where I store creative things like my sewing machine. Reminding us of what the purpose of a space is really helps us to determine what needs to stay and what needs to go. So just a reminder, here's what we were starting with, and then here is the after. So again, not a dramatic difference, and I didn't spend anything, but it feels so much lighter and better. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll be talking to you in the next one.